Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another rapid fire review video here on the channel. This is a series where I try and review books that I've read within 24-ish hours of having read them. I'm not always the best at it, but I try. This is in an effort to try and review new releases before they come out. I'm working on it. Today we are talking about Adrian Tchaikovsky's latest book, City of Last Chances. Quick disclaimers before we start, I was sent a digital review copy of this book, that's why I don't have it to wave at you, from a publisher for free. Nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as humanly possible. If you do want to go into this knowing absolutely nothing, pause the video, read the book, come back when you've read it, we'll chat then. Lastly, I will link the story graph for the book below in case you want to check out any user generated content warnings. So yes, I finished this book yesterday after quite a lengthy reading process. So it is the 16th of November when I'm filming this. I filmed a whole bunch of videos today. You'll see oodles of thumbnails of me wearing this jumper and dungarees combo. Don't comment on it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. This is actually out on the 8th of December in the UK. I think it is a Head of Zeus book, but I'm not totally sure. A lot of the other Adrian Tchaikovsky that I've read has been published by Tor, so it's interesting to read him under presumably a different editor. And this is a fantasy book. It is Adrian Tchaikovsky's return to fantasy. I don't know how true that is. I haven't sat down and gone through all of his lists and gone, when did you last publish a book that was not science fiction, sir? But okay, I'll believe the marketing. I've only read his sci-fi previously, so I can't comment on what his old fantasy was like or any of that gubbins. Adrian Tchaikovsky is a fairly prolific writer. I think he's primarily been writing sci-fi in the recent years. His most recent book that I reviewed was Children of Memory, which came out in the end of November kind of time, I think. I really enjoy his sci-fi. I've had a good time with it. I do think it has a tendency to be a little overwritten, which we'll come on to in this review. But overall is an author that I tend to check out everything new that he's got. I've got one more book of his on my TBR, and then I need to go back through his backlist and decide what I want to read. Other things I know about him is that he also LARPs, so we've got something in common, Adrian and I. This book takes place in the city of Ilmar, the city of last chances. There are various things going on in this city. We have like a weird ghost part of the city. There's an enchanted forest that's pretty nasty to everyone. There are demons in the foundries. The demons are intentionally there. They work there. There's a whole lot going on. Ilmar is this city of last chances. It's also a city under occupation, and this story really is a revolution, how the revolution starts and how the revolution plays out kind of story, following various different characters, including some that we just get for a chapter or so and some that we get for much more of the book. Those characters that we got for most of the book were probably my favourite parts of the story. I particularly liked Lemia, who's one of the female characters, and she just, like, I found her very inspiring and very lovely, nice character to be in her perspective for a while. I also thought Ruslav was really interesting, Yasnik was really interesting. Basically all the recurring characters I enjoyed, and I think it's probably because those were the bits that I really understood what was going on, because I'd been with the characters for a good chunk of the book. So what sort of happens is each chapter starts with sort of a wider scope and then zooms in on one character. It feels very cinematic in a lot of ways, which some people might find irritating. I personally quite enjoyed it, and then every so often we'll have a chapter that's multiple different people, and it reminded me a little bit of some of Joe Abercrombie's writing in the Chaos, this one, the Little Hatred series, where you get these chapters of lots of different people reacting to the same event. So characters definitely stuck with me. I think the other things that will stick with me from this book were definitely some of the smaller ideas within the story. So for instance, the idea of gods, and particularly kind of small gods, and the idea that religion is kind of being stamped out of Ilmar because of the occupation. And we have Yasnik, who's the last priest of this particular god, and he can see God, and God is right there, and God is annoyed, and God doesn't want to deal with Yasnik anymore, and Yasnik is kind of fed up with God as well. And just like really interesting things like that. There's a whole lot of contract law to do with demons, also a very cool idea. There's a really cool section about the hangman and the hangman creating like bespoke nooses for people. I just thought it was really fascinating, and some of those really little moments or little scenes within the story I will definitely remember from this book. I also thought that the build of this revolution, the kind of snowball effect of the events of book one into the enormous conclusion of the story, were really powerful. I think that the way that the story builds is really well done, and I think that the pacing is handled extremely well. You kind of need that for this kind of revolution story, especially if you're starting from before it's starting, I guess, and you need that snowball. It really did feel like I was picking up momentum as I rolled down a hill while reading this book. That's a strange metaphor, but I'm going with it. However, I won't say that this book is one that I'm planning on rereading. I think that overall it was fine. I just think that with Adrian Tchaikovsky's sci-fi, it feels overwritten, but I really like the concept and I really get on board with the plots, and I'm very happy to read a very overwritten story. With this, I didn't really get a good handle on what was going on for a good chunk of the book. And I think if you asked me to tell you what specifically happened in the story, beat for beat, I don't know that I'd be able to. I can tell you all those little scenes, I can tell you those little ideas, but I can't tell you the main plot. And hands in the air, that might be my fault. Maybe you'll read this and you'll have a fabulous time and you'll remember everything. Maybe I wasn't in the right place, maybe I was a little burned out, whatever. I haven't had that experience with some of his other books, despite them having similar writing styles. So it is kind of that, it's quite wordy, it's quite confusing at times, and while you do get this zoom out, zoom in kind of thing, I don't know that it necessarily carries the pace quite well because you have to jump about quite a bit and sometimes you forget what's happened and where you are, and if you're me, you find that very difficult. So I think potentially had this had a slightly tighter setup and a tighter structure and a clearer direction, I might have liked it more, which may mean that on a reread I would like it more because I now know where it's going. That is something that I've had happen to me in the past where I've sort of given a book 3 stars on the first read, read it again, and it's gone right up because I understood the trajectory of things better. I do think if I did reread this, I would do it via audiobook. I think this is the kind of story that would work much better via audio, especially if it was narrated by someone who was doing different voices for all the characters, just to keep track of who's who and where you are at various different times. Because I think one of the things that was meant to be a big selling point for this was this world and this city and this enchanted forest is the wrong word, like terrifying forest, and I didn't really necessarily ever feel like I was in that, and that might be because I wasn't picking up on that in the main prose of the story. So audiobook might work better for me. Potentially I can see a future where I reread this via audio. I can't see myself picking this up physically again. Particularly moments like the hangman moment and some of the other character interactions. I really got a Terry Pratchett feel out of this. And I don't know whether that's just because I was reading other Terry Pratchett at the time. This isn't a comedy. A lot of terrible things happen, but the idea of doing contract law with demons, there's something in there, just a little bit, just a sliver of that somewhere. Other things I would compare this to, I can't think of any really good examples. Maybe something like the Kithamar series where you've got something very city-based, and the city is another character in the story, I suppose. I just don't think I ever engaged with it enough to fully feel the comparison. So I think this was probably a very personal experience of this, that I couldn't quite engage with it, which is the hardest thing to review. I've talked about that before. And I don't want to say like objectively this was bad and I think everyone won't like this. But for me personally, it's just not something that I really engaged with, and I think the fact that from that I jumped straight into a different book that I hadn't read before that was similar in, fantasy and detailed world building and such, and I kind of went, oh, no, I'm enjoying this much more, and it felt very different. I think having that contrast made me realise it wasn't just the mood I was in, it was also that this book was really bringing me down. Do you have plans to read this? Have you already ordered yourself a copy? What are your thoughts on Adrian Tchaikovsky's other fantasy? Are there books I should really get into? Is it worth leaving? Should I finish all of his sci-fi first? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I'd like to say thank you to all the ghosts who support the channel on Patreon and get early access to videos, bonus content and live streams. If you would like to join their number, that's the link below. Thank you so much for watching. This was a really tricky one to review for some reason because I feel like it's probably like 80% the book and 20% the mood I was in when I read it. So if you feel like this is worth a redemption reread, let me know. Ooh, now there's a series idea. Okay, making a mental note of that. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. That as I can. Well, they're intentionally there though, not like the Enchanted Forest with bad things. I just throw my arm. In a bit of a